Dad, please pick up, please." But the phone kept ringing. Again, and again, and again. Ethan Carter's hands were shaking so badly he could barely hold his phone. Tears blurred his vision as he sat alone in the back of a speeding car, praying for something impossible. Just one more chance. One more conversation. One more goodbye. But deep inside, he already knew he was too late. Only a few hours earlier, Ethan was sitting in a luxury office, surrounded by successful people, million-dollar deals, and everything he once dreamed about. Everyone admired him. To the world, he had made it. Money, power, respect, the perfect life. But while Ethan was building his future, something heartbreaking was happening behind him. The people who loved him most were slowly fading from his life. And he didn't even notice. You see, Ethan always believed there would be more time. More time to visit his parents. More time to say, "I love you." More time to come home. But life has a terrifying way of teaching lessons when it's already too late. And tonight, Ethan was about to learn that lesson forever. As the car raced through the dark streets, his mind replayed the last conversation he had with his father. A conversation he wished with every part of his soul he could take back. His father's weak voice echoed in his head. "Son, when are you coming home?" And Ethan, stressed, distracted, consumed by work, answered with words that would destroy him later. "I'm busy, Dad." Busy. One word. One careless moment. One mistake he would regret for the rest of his life. Because he didn't know. Those would be the last real words his father would ever hear from him. Tonight's story isn't just emotional. It's real. It's about the painful truth millions of people realize too late. We spend our lives chasing success, money, and dreams, thinking the people we love will always be there waiting for us. But one day, without warning, you walk into an empty room. You hear a phone that never rings again. You look at someone you love, and realize you ran out of time. By the end of this story, there's a very high chance you'll think about your own parents, your own family, maybe even the people you haven't called in weeks. Because what happened to Ethan Carter could happen to anyone. And the most heartbreaking part, everything could have been different if he had just gone home sooner. So before this story begins, ask yourself one question. If the people you love disappeared tomorrow, would you regret the way you treated them today? Because Ethan's answer came too late. And once you hear what happened that night, you'll never forget this story. The phone slipped from his hand and shattered on the floor, just like his world. Ethan Carter didn't even notice the sound at first. The glass cracking against the polished office floor echoed faintly, but inside him, something far louder had already broken. His eyes were locked on the message that had just appeared moments before. His fingers twitched slightly, as if they wanted to scroll, to refresh, to undo what he had just read. But the words didn't change. "They're gone." 3 simple words. Yet they carried a weight so heavy it crushed everything in an instant. His thoughts, his breath, his sense of reality. Ethan's chest tightened. The air in the room suddenly felt too thin. He tried to inhale, but it came out uneven, shaky. Around him, the meeting continued as if nothing had happened. Voices, charts, numbers. A presentation about growth projections and quarterly profits. Just minutes ago, this had been the most important moment of his week. Maybe even his month. A deal worth millions was on the line, and Ethan had been leading it with complete focus. Or at least, he thought he was. Because his phone had been vibrating non-stop. Call after call. Message after message. All from one contact. Mom. He had seen it. Of course, he had seen it. But he silenced it. Again. And again. And again. "I'll call her after the meeting," he had told himself. "It's probably nothing urgent." That's what he always said. It's probably nothing. There's still time. Later. But now, there was no later. Ethan slowly bent down, his movements stiff, unnatural. His hand reached for the broken phone on the floor. The screen was cracked, lines running across it like fractures spreading through his reality. Yet the message was still visible. Unchanged. Unforgiving. They're gone. His mind raced, refusing to accept it. No, no, this doesn't make sense. He quickly opened his messages again, scrolling up, searching for something, anything, that could explain this. His mother's earlier texts flooded the screen. Ethan, please pick up. It's your dad. Call me, please. It's serious. The timestamps hit him harder than the words. 30 minutes ago. 20 minutes ago. 10 minutes ago. And then, the final message. They're gone. Ethan's heartbeat thundered in his ears. His father. Robert Carter. Gone. No. That couldn't be right. Just last week, he had spoken to him. Well, not really spoken. Argued. The memory came rushing back, sharp and unforgiving. His father's voice, tired, weak, but still calm. Son, when are you coming home? Ethan had been in the middle of preparing for this very meeting, stressed, overwhelmed, barely sleeping. I told you, Dad, I'm busy, he had snapped. I can't just leave everything and come running every time something happens. There had been a pause. He remembered that pause now. It was longer than usual, quieter than usual. Then his father had said softly, I understand. At the time, Ethan hadn't thought much of it. Now, those words felt like a knife twisting inside his chest. I understand. Did he? Or was that just what he said? So his son wouldn't feel guilty? Ethan's vision blurred as tears began to form. No. Not here. Not now. He quickly wiped his eyes, glancing around the room. No one seemed to notice yet. His colleagues were still focused on the presentation, still discussing strategies, still living in a world that hadn't just collapsed. Ethan tried to stand, but his legs felt weak. Unstable. Like they didn't belong to him anymore. He grabbed the edge of the table for support, his knuckles turning white. I need to step out, he muttered, though he wasn't sure anyone heard him. One of his co-workers glanced at him briefly. Everything okay? Ethan opened his mouth to respond. But no words came out. Because everything was not okay. Nothing was okay. Instead, he nodded slightly, an automatic response, and walked out of the room. The hallway felt colder. Quieter. Every step echoed as he moved, his mind spinning out of control. This can't be happening. I just need to call her. Maybe it's a mistake. His hands trembled as he tried to unlock his phone again. The cracked screen flickered, but it still worked. He tapped his mother's name. Calling. The ringing felt endless. Each second stretched into eternity. Then she picked up. Ethan. Her voice broke instantly. And that's when reality hit him. Hard. Irreversible. Mom. What happened? His voice shook, barely holding together. There was a pause on the other end. He could hear her breathing. Uneven. Heavy. He kept asking for you, she said, her words collapsing under the weight of her grief. He thought you would come. Ethan closed his eyes, his entire body freezing. No. Mom, You said you'd come, she continued, not accusing, not angry, just broken. He believed you. The guilt slammed into him like a wave. I was going to, Ethan said quickly, desperately. I had this meeting, and I thought. You thought there would be time. Her words cut through everything. Because they were true. That's exactly what he thought. There would always be time. But time doesn't wait. Ethan slid down against the wall, sitting on the cold floor of the empty hallway. His expensive suit, his polished shoes, his perfect image, none of it mattered anymore. I'm coming home, he whispered, his voice barely audible. But even as he said it, he knew. Home wasn't the same anymore. Because the person he was going home for was already gone. Ethan lowered the phone slowly, his hands shaking uncontrollably. The silence around him felt suffocating. Moments ago, he had been a successful man, in control of everything. No. He was just a son who had run out of time. And for the first time in his life, Ethan Carter realized something terrifying. You don't always get a second chance. Sometimes, you don't even get a goodbye. Long before that moment in the hallway, before the regret, before the silence, before everything fell apart, Ethan Carter was the kind of person everyone admired. The kind of person people pointed at and said, "He made it." But what no one saw was what it cost him. Ethan grew up in a small, quiet town where life moved slowly. The kind of place where neighbors knew each other, where evenings were spent together, and where family wasn't just important, it was everything. His father, Robert Carter, wasn't a rich man. He worked long hours at a local factory, coming home tired, his hands rough, his clothes carrying the smell of hard work. But no matter how exhausting his day was, he always made time for Ethan. To help him with homework, to play catch in the backyard, to listen. His mother, Linda Carter, was the heart of the home. She didn't have a high-paying job or a big title, but she had something far more valuable: endless love. She believed in Ethan more than anyone. Every morning, she would wake up early to make his breakfast. Every night, she would remind him, "You're meant for something great." And Ethan believed it too. He wasn't satisfied with a small-town life. He wanted more. More success. More money. More recognition. He wanted to give his parents a better life. A life where they wouldn't have to struggle anymore. So he worked harder than anyone. While other kids were playing, Ethan was studying. While others were relaxing, he was planning his future. And eventually, it paid off. He earned a scholarship to one of the best universities in the country. The day he left home, his parents stood at the door, trying to hide their emotions. His mother hugged him tightly, her voice soft but proud. "Don't forget where you came from." His father placed a hand on his shoulder and said, "No matter how far you go, this will always be your home." Ethan smiled. At the time, those words felt comforting. He didn't realize they were also a warning. University changed everything. For the first time, Ethan was surrounded by people just as ambitious as him, people who wanted to win, to rise, to be the best. And Ethan didn't just fit in. He stood out. Late nights, endless work, constant pressure, he embraced it all. He graduated at the top of his class and quickly landed a high-paying job in a major city. That's when his life truly began to change. The city was fast, demanding, unforgiving. But Ethan loved it. The long hours didn't bother him. The stress didn't scare him. In fact, it fueled him. Every promotion felt like proof that he was on the right path. Every paycheck felt like validation. Every success pushed him further away from the life he used to know. At first, he stayed connected with his parents. He called them regularly, visited during holidays, sent gifts. But slowly, things began to shift. Calls became shorter. "Hey Mom, I'm busy. I'll call you later." Later rarely came. Visits became less frequent. "I can't make it this weekend, Dad. Work's crazy." There was always a reason. Always an excuse. And always a promise. "I'll come soon." But soon kept getting pushed further and further away. His parents never complained. Not once. They understood. Or at least, they said they did. His mother would still call him, her voice warm and full of love. "Did you eat? Are you taking care of yourself?" Simple questions. But behind them was something deeper. She missed him. His father wasn't as expressive. He didn't call often. But when he did, it was always about Ethan. "I saw your company in the news," he would say proudly. "You're doing great, son." Ethan would smile, feeling a sense of accomplishment. This was why he worked so hard. For them. At least, that's what he told himself. As the years passed, Ethan's life became more structured, more controlled, more focused on one thing: success. His schedule was packed. Meetings, deadlines, travel. There was no room for distractions. And without realizing it, his family became one of those distractions. Not intentionally, not consciously, but slowly, they moved lower on his list of priorities. Holidays became optional. Birthdays turned into quick text messages. "Happy birthday, Mom. Love you." No call. No visit. Just words on a screen. His mother would reply instantly. "Thank you, beta. We miss you." Ethan would read it, pause for a moment, and then move on. Back home, things were different. His parents' house remained the same. Quiet. Still. Waiting. His mother would still cook his favorite meals sometimes. Just in case. His father would still sit in his chair, occasionally glancing at the door when he heard a car outside. Just in case. But most of the time, it wasn't him. Deep down, Ethan knew something wasn't right. There were moments, late at night, after long days, when he would think about home. About his parents. About the life he left behind. A small voice inside him would whisper, "You should call them." Sometimes he did. But most of the time, he ignored it. Because there was always something more urgent. Something more important. Or so he believed. Ethan convinced himself of one thing. I'm doing this for them. Everything, the long hours, the missed calls, the distance, it was all for his family. To give them a better life. To make them proud. To ensure they never had to struggle again. But what he didn't realize was that his parents never wanted his money. They never needed his success. All they ever wanted was him. His time. His presence. His voice. And the most dangerous thought of all? Ethan believed he had time. Time to visit. Time to reconnect. Time to fix everything later. But life doesn't work that way. Because while Ethan was busy building his future, he was slowly losing his present. And one day, without warning, that time he believed in so much would run out. The truth didn't arrive all at once. It didn't crash into Ethan's life like a storm or scream for his attention. Instead, it whispered. Softly. Repeatedly. Patiently. And that's exactly why he ignored it. It started with small signs. The kind most people would notice instantly. But Ethan wasn't most people anymore. One evening, his mother called him. It was late. Ethan was still at the office, staring at his laptop, surrounded by empty coffee cups and unfinished work. His phone lit up. Mom. He hesitated for a second, then answered. Hey, Mom. I can't talk long. I'm in the middle of something. Her voice came through, softer than usual. Ethan, your dad hasn't been feeling well. Ethan leaned back in his chair, rubbing his forehead. What do you mean? He's been really tired. The doctor says he needs rest, maybe more tests. There was a pause. Not just silence, but something heavier. Worry. Fear. A quiet request hidden between the words. Can you come home for a few days? She asked gently. Ethan looked at his screen. Deadlines. Emails. A deal that could change everything for him. This week's really bad, Mom, he replied quickly. I have a big project. I'll come next week, okay? I promise. There it was again. That word. Promise. His mother didn't argue. She never did. Okay, Beta, she said softly. Take care of yourself. The call ended. And just like that, Ethan went back to work. Next week came. And went. The project got bigger. More complicated. More important. At least, that's what Ethan believed. Every day, he told himself the same thing. Just a little more time. I'll go once things settle down. They'll understand. And they did. That was the problem. His parents always understood. Even when it hurt them. The calls continued. Short. Careful. Different. His mother tried to sound normal. But Ethan could hear it. The strain in her voice. The way she paused before answering certain questions. The way she avoided saying too much. One night, she said something that should have stopped him completely. Your dad asked about you today. Ethan smiled slightly. What did he say? He asked, when you're coming home. Ethan looked away from his screen. I told you, Mom. Soon. I just need to finish this deal. There was silence. Then she replied quietly, He'll be happy to hear that. But her voice didn't sound convinced. As days turned into weeks, his father's condition worsened. Doctor visits became more frequent. Rest turned into weakness. Conversations turned into silence. But Ethan didn't see any of it. He wasn't there. He was in a different world. A world of meetings, pressure, and constant movement. A world where emotions were distractions. And time was money. Then came the call. The one he should have answered differently. The one that would replay in his mind, again and again. It was late. Ethan was exhausted. His head hurt. His patience was gone. His phone rang. Dad. He stared at the screen for a moment. Something inside him said, "Pick up." So he did. "Hey, Dad." His father's voice came through. Weaker. Slower. But still calm. "Son, how are you?" "I'm good," Ethan replied quickly. "Just busy, you know how it is." There was a small chuckle on the other end. "Yes, I know." A pause followed. Not uncomfortable. Not awkward. Just quiet. Then his father spoke again. "Ethan, when are you coming home?" The question was simple, but it hit differently this time. Ethan felt a flicker of irritation. Not at his father, but at the situation, at the pressure, at the timing. "I told Mom already," he said, his tone sharper than he intended. "I'm really busy right now. I can't just leave everything and come home every time something happens." Silence. Instant. Heavy. Ethan didn't realize what he had just done. Didn't realize how those words sounded. Didn't realize this moment mattered. Then his father spoke. Softly. Calmly. Almost like he was trying not to break. "I understand." 3 words. Simple, but filled with something Ethan didn't hear at the time. Disappointment. Pain. Acceptance. The kind of acceptance that comes when someone stops expecting anything. Ethan sighed, still frustrated. "I'll try to come soon, okay?" "Take your time," his father replied gently. And then, the call ended. Ethan stared at his phone for a few seconds, then placed it face down on the table, and went back to work. Just like always. That night, something felt different. Not enough to stop him. Not enough to change his actions. But enough to leave a small crack in his thoughts. A quiet uneasiness. A feeling he couldn't explain. He pushed it aside. Because that's what he always did. Ignore. Delay. Move forward. Days passed. No calls from his father. Only his mother. And even those became less frequent. Ethan noticed. But he didn't question it. He assumed things were stable. That no news was good news. Until the day everything changed. The day the calls didn't stop. The day the messages became urgent. The day his world shattered. Now, sitting alone, replaying everything in his mind, Ethan finally understood the truth. It had been there all along. In every call, every pause, every word left unsaid. His father wasn't just asking him to visit. He was asking for time. For presence. For one last chance to be with his son. And Ethan chose everything else. That final call. Those final words. "I understand." They weren't just acceptance. They were goodbye. A goodbye Ethan didn't recognize. A goodbye he didn't return. And now, there was nothing left to fix. Nothing left to say. Because the truth he had ignored for so long had finally caught up with him. And this time, it didn't give him another chance. The drive home felt endless. Ethan Carter sat in the back seat of the car, staring blankly out the window as the city lights blurred past him. His phone rested in his trembling hands, the cracked screen still glowing faintly. No new messages. No missed calls. Nothing. For the first time in years, silence terrified him. His mind replayed everything over and over again. His father's voice. His mother's tears. That final conversation. "I understand." The words wouldn't leave him alone. Each time he heard them in his head, they sounded different. Sadder. Heavier. Final. Ethan pressed his hand against his mouth, trying to hold himself together. But the harder he tried to stay calm, the more the guilt consumed him. Why didn't I go home? The question repeated endlessly. And no answer felt good enough anymore. Not work. Not success. Not money. Nothing. Because none of it mattered now. Hours later, The car finally turned onto the familiar street where Ethan had grown up. Everything looked the same. The old houses, the quiet sidewalks, the streetlights glowing softly in the darkness. But something felt wrong. Empty. As the car slowed in front of his parents' house, Ethan's chest tightened painfully. The porch light was on. Cars lined the street outside. And suddenly, reality hit him harder than ever before. This wasn't a nightmare. This was real. His father was really gone. Ethan stepped out of the car slowly. His legs felt weak beneath him. The cold night air hit his face, but he barely noticed. He stared at the house for a long moment. Memories flooded his mind instantly. Running through that front door as a child. Hearing his mother call him for dinner. Watching football with his dad on the couch. Laughing. Living. Home. But tonight, the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a place filled with regret. The front door was slightly open. As Ethan walked inside, conversations stopped. The room fell silent. Relatives turned toward him slowly. Some looked at him with sympathy. Others with disappointment they didn't bother hiding. Ethan lowered his eyes. Because deep down, he knew they were right. He should have been there. The smell of coffee, candles, and sadness filled the air. Everything felt heavy. Still. Broken. Then he saw his mother. Linda Carter sat quietly in the corner of the living room, surrounded by family members. Her face looked pale and exhausted, her eyes swollen from hours of crying. For a moment, Ethan froze. He didn't know what to say. What words even existed for a moment like this? Slowly, he walked toward her. "Mom," he whispered. She looked up at him. And that look, it shattered him completely. There was love in her eyes. But also pain. Not anger. Not hatred. Just heartbreak. The kind that comes when someone has cried so much, they no longer have the strength to speak. Ethan knelt beside her, tears filling his eyes instantly. "I'm sorry," he said weakly. "I came as fast as I could." His mother nodded slowly. But she didn't respond. And somehow, that silence hurt more than if she had screamed at him. A relative placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder gently. "He's in his room," the man said quietly. Ethan's breathing became uneven. His father's room. The room he suddenly feared more than anything. For a second, he couldn't move. Because part of him still wanted to believe this wasn't real. That he would walk in and see his father sitting there, smiling, asking why everyone looked so serious. But another part of him already knew. Some doors change you forever once you open them. Ethan walked slowly down the hallway. Every step felt heavier than the last. The family photos on the walls blurred through his tears. Photos of birthdays, vacations, smiling faces frozen in happier times. There was one photo that stopped him completely. A picture of him and his father from years ago. Ethan was young, maybe 12 years old, standing proudly beside his dad after a baseball game. Robert Carter's arm rested proudly on his son's shoulder. Both of them smiling. Happy. Together. Ethan reached toward the frame with shaking fingers. And that's when it hit him. Somewhere along the way, he had stopped being that son. Finally, he reached the bedroom door. His hand trembled as he pushed it open. The room was quiet. Painfully quiet. And there, lying still beneath the dim light, was his father, Robert Carter. Motionless. Gone. Ethan stopped breathing for a moment. His knees gave out instantly, and he collapsed onto the floor beside the bed. "No," he whispered weakly. Tears poured down his face uncontrollably now. Not the quiet tears of sadness. These were different. These were tears filled with guilt, regret, failure. "Dad!" His voice cracked completely. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." But there was no answer. No comforting voice. No gentle smile. Only silence. The kind of silence that changes a person forever. Ethan reached for his father's hand slowly. Cold. Lifeless. And in that moment, every achievement in his life became meaningless. The expensive suits. The promotions. The awards. The money. None of it could do the one thing he desperately wanted now. Bring his father back. "I should have come home," he cried softly. The words repeated again and again, like punishment, like truth, because deep inside, he knew this pain wasn't only about losing his father. It was about realizing he had wasted the time he still had. He had convinced himself there would always be another visit, another phone call, another chance. But life doesn't promise that. Sometimes the last conversation happens without warning. Sometimes the final goodbye doesn't even sound like goodbye. That night, Ethan sat alone in his childhood bedroom. The same room where he once dreamed about success. The same room he had rushed to escape years ago. Moonlight shined faintly through the window as he looked around at the memories surrounding him. Old trophies, books, family photos, a lifetime sitting quietly around him. And for the first time in years, Ethan truly understood something. Success means nothing if you lose the people who mattered most while chasing it. Time is the one thing no amount of money can buy back. And love. Love must be shown while people are still here to feel it. Ethan lowered his head, tears falling silently into his hands. He had spent his entire life preparing for the future. But he forgot something important. The future isn't guaranteed. And now, like so many people do far too late, Ethan Carter finally realized the truth. But it was already too late.